This is Del K. Brereton. And Trinidad, they would say Brereton. And this is the real spiel. Shout out to my cameraman who's sitting here to my right. Said that just for all the law enforcement agencies that are passing these new laws of distracted driving. Luckily for me, that I have my own cameraman who handles my phone. So both my hands are not on my phone. I am hands-free. Thank you to the cameraman to the right of me. That is off camera because cameramen are off camera and you can't see. Because I'm hands-free, my hands are on the steering wheel. Yeah. Del K. Brereton, this is the real spiel. Let's make it happen. Shout out to all the Cyclopses that are in the building that are coming online in a few minutes, a few seconds. To Dr. David Israel, my Hebrew linguist. To Pastor McCullough, that's Bishop's son, my main man, 100 grand. All right. To our leader, Asriel Moore. And to Miss Jeanette, you're the front of the thing now, Miss Jeanette. And to all those who are here, bless everybody. What's going on? Yo, yo, yo. Zenobia is in the house, Listen, Zenobia, and all that are here, to the Cox family, to Pastor Thompson, to Faith Temple Apostolic International Ministry, the Emmanuel Church of Jesus Christ, Apostolic, FTA Theological Seminary. Listen, we have a Kamla in Trinidad, you know. We have our own Kamla. Kamla Prasad Besazar is the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Trinidad has a very interesting parliamentary system where we have a Prime Minister and a President, but the head of the country is the actual Prime Minister. And right now we have a woman, Kamla Prasad Besazar, and she's gotten quite she went viral, quite the media coverage for her because of the topic that I'm trying to raise today. Today we're going to have a conversation about arms, weapons, guns within the jurisdictions of African and Caribbean African communities. There's a disconnect, I believe, between people of color and the utilization of legal weapons and the possession of guns, of weapons, in comparison to other communities. And it's a very interesting disparity that you have to understand. You've been socialized to behave like. I am not here to tell you what you already know. I'm here to tell you what you're supposed to know. And what you're supposed to understand and you're supposed to know is that there is a great disparity between nations that have weapons of mass destruction, nations that have powerful militaries, and nations that don't, and the populations that make up those nations. You're my dear friend. What's going on, John? What's going on? Listen, so right now, even to this day, in most black communities, anywhere that you find in the world, if you say to them, listen, I own weapons, I own guns, I think everybody should own guns, I think they'll say, why do you need a gun? If it's in a faith community, they're going to say, why do you need a gun? If it's in a non-faith community, they're going to say, why? That's a problem. Everybody's got guns. Why do you need guns? And so there's seemingly a mindset between ethnic, marginalized, racialized communities, especially those of the diaspora, and even on the continent, and those in the Caribbean. I have to say that because not all the time, the Caribbean, the Caribbean, African Caribbean identifies themselves as being part of the diaspora. I know it sounds crazy to you, but some people have disenfranchised themselves with Africa altogether and say, I'm not African, I'm Caribbean. I don't have nothing in Africa. I'm from Trinidad. A lot of very proud Trinidadians and other individuals from the Caribbean will say that very boldly to your face. I don't have nothing to do with Africa. I'm a Jamaican. I'm from Guyana. I'm from Barbados. I don't have nothing to do with them people. I don't speak their language and all these kind of things. So that's why I say it like that, right? A lot of times people don't know that. So you will find that those communities do not put a premium on the ownership of weapons up until Kamla Bissar. Now, recently, what's taken place in Trinidad, I'm going to talk about other countries as well, but what's taken place in Trinidad is there has been an uptick in violent crime. And for those that don't understand where Trinidad is, it's basically on the northeast tip of Venezuela. We're very close to Venezuela. And a lot of times what was happening in Venezuela filtered into Trinidad in respect to refugees, immigration, and weapons. And so there is an abundance for the population per capita of access to weaponry in Trinidad that is not legal weaponry necessarily, not weapons that are coming in a legal way. So the smuggling of weapons, and so therefore individuals can get their hands on serious weapons in Trinidad. And so taking place is that the government just recently they actually had a state of emergency in Trinidad because of violent crime, and so it's become a very major conversation. There's been travel warnings about Trinidad. A lot of indigenous Trinidadians do not wish to go back to Trinidad at this time. My sister, I just spoke to her yesterday and said, hey man, we need to look about some land my father left in Trinidad. We should go down there. She's like, oh, I don't know if I want to go to Trinidad right now. Trinidad doesn't like us. They're kidnapping foreigners and all kinds of stuff. So the stigma is there, even amongst in Trinidadians. I'm of a different kind of breed. I'm never afraid to go home to my country. Never afraid. Never will I ever be afraid to go to my country. It is my country. I will walk there boldly, with a gun or without a gun. I will walk there very, very boldly because it's my land. I'm not afraid of my people, and I'm not afraid of a stigma. Because when I step in the place, as they say in the soca song, when I touch down, the whole place shut down. All right, so there's a great mentality that we have to understand. I want to before I go to another nation. This prime minister said a very serious thing when she was giving her speech. She said, that she wants to legalize. She wants to have people to have legalized guns, and her ending of that particular speech and platform was, listen, when them criminal come into your house, you load up your Matic and empty the clip, light them up. And they started to cheer for her. They started to cheer because she's not joking. And it's funny, a woman has to come with that level of toughness to say, hey, we're not going to be this country that allows criminals who smuggle in weapons to hold us hostage because we have some kind of issue with armed weapons. We're not going to be those people. We're going to have legal guns in the country, legal guns in the city, legal guns in the Red House. And when those criminals think they can invade your land, come in, break into their house, they're going to be met with force that matches the force that they've come with. And that's a very appropriate thing for a leader to tell her people. And this is why, the United States of America is such a bandit, and other nations are such bandits when it comes to dealing with the African diaspora. Do you know that, first of all, this concept that they talk about, and I love using Burkina Faso because it's such a great example of imperialism and the abuse of power and manipulation that has taken place by the West. But do you know that nations will not sell them lethal weapons? They said, we cannot sell you lethal weapons. They're not begging. They're saying, we want to pay. This is straight out of the mouth of our president, Ibrahim Traoré, the commander-in-chief of Burkina Faso and the leader of the Sahel Union. He said, listen, they won't sell it to us. We have the money. They won't sell it to us. They said to us that they cannot sell us anything lethal. And he says the crazy part is that these are the same factions that are building up and conspiring to arm bandits. He says they're not terrorists. They're just bandits. That they're arming them, giving them weapons so they can destabilize the country. So it could be said that the country's not stable, and oh, we've got to go in there. They're not stable. It's not. The civilians are dying. People are being killed, and so we're gonna come in and assist them, and they're gonna come and try to take over your nation because they're not arming the army that we're trying to prepare, we're trying to build, and pay them. He says Russia is the only nation that is selling them weapons, and listen, they didn't change one slave master for another. All they do is they buy the weapons. They have a contract, a training contract for a period of time, and they bring in Russian soldiers or commandos, and I think they've used the same thing with Korea and China to teach us how to use these weapons that we have bought, how to use these jets, how to use all of the things that they're utilizing. And when I listen to this dastardly Negro, General Langley from America, how he's saying that he wants the Senate to give him more weapons to secure his forces in another person's country, it's very clear what's happening. They're saying, listen, these guys are getting more sophisticated. Russia's here. Russia's bringing in sophisticated weaponry. They're reinforcing them. They're building an army. 50,000 new soldiers in Burkina Faso, and there's more to come. And they're teaching them how to use weapons. Yesterday, Donald Trump, or a couple of days ago, in his conversation, speaking of his trip to Saudi Arabia, and his conversation with Qatar, and his liberation of one American Israeli from Hamas, like this guy is taking a victory lap because he got one guy he got one guy out of the clutches of Hamas. He took a victory lap, and he says, we want to go have a conversation with Iran. There's some very intelligent people in Iran. They're very intelligent. They can't have a nuclear weapon, but they're very intelligent people, and they're saying the right things, and we want to have a conversation with them. First of all, I said this many times, and if anybody who has any kind of half a brain knows that Iran is already a nuclear force. Iran was using nuclear power in the 80s. So Iran is already a nuclear force. They already have nuclear weapons, unbeknownst to maybe the rest of the world, but they definitely already have nuclear weapons, and they're not giving them back. And if Israel can have nuclear weapons, Iran can have nuclear weapons. And this is the thing. I sat down and I listened, and again, I'm in the process of trying to make you decolonize your mind. I sat down and listened to Sputnik News. Sputnik News, where would that be from? Russia. Russian news, having a direct interview with Ibrahim Traoré, President Traoré, and allowing him to speak his own mind, and realizing that you cannot get your news from Western sources. You can't. You simply cannot. You cannot accept Western sources for your world news. You cannot accept these people's lies. And I don't care I don't care what face it is carrying. I don't care if it is a black general. Listen to that dragon talk. He is talking with the puppeteer hand of his masters up his behind. It's packaged. And the intention is to make you realize, or to make you feel rather, that in order to carry a gun, to be weaponized, to be powerful, you must do so under the auspices of Western colonial and imperialistic powers. But if you are to rise up by yourself and to do it yourself, if you are to say that I will be a sovereign nation myself, whether that be in the Caribbean, whether that be in Africa. If you are to say that I will have castle laws for my citizens, I will have stand your ground laws for people that look like us with melanin in their skin, that you all of a sudden become a country that, oh my gosh, look what's happening down there. Oh, it's so terrible. Look at the crime that's happening down there. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Why don't we have a travel advisory to some of the states in America that have incredible amounts of gun violence? You want to have travel advisories for my little island because we have a little bit of problems that's getting some national attention? We have a police force. We have the GEB, the Guard Emergency Branch. My father, may he rest in peace, was the head of the Guard Emergency Branch. We have our national security. We have our army. We can handle any little bit of criminals that come down there. Any little bit of criminals that rise up their head. They just need a prime minister with sense. And we just need leadership with sense. I heard something very popular from a brother. Most of you listen to him. They're very, very smart. And now Ibrahim Traoré. These guys are not people that were before their time. These were men who were speaking to the conditions of a modern day Africa. But what the West wanted to do is they want to keep Africa stuck in the 17 and the 1800s. They want to make sensible African leaders seem like they are revolutionists, that it's a revolution. It's so very interesting what a revolution looks like to Western minds, right? If you give an individual from a third world country or somebody from a developing world, you give him an idea that says sovereignty, that says independence, he's a revolutionary. But if you say that to Western governments and say, hey, sovereignty, independence, smooth transfers of power, you say, oh, that's progress, that's civilization. And it's very interesting how we, as people, have digested that message. When you have, I remember when I got my firearms license, because after I left the police force, I had to go and get my license to carry my weapons, to have my weapons. You have to get an ATT, which is a permit to transport, authorization to transport, ATT. You got to have your registration on you now to carry your gun. Canada has made handguns almost impossible to own. My handguns better last me the rest of my life because you'll probably never be able to get them back unless this liberal government catches some sense, or unless we're properly invaded, probably by America. So you have to go through this process. And when I went to my test, you know what I saw? I saw little 16, 17-year-old white kids writing their long gun permit, little children, parents bringing their little 16, 17-year-old kids, writing their test, and realizing that there's a completely different mentality between ethnic divisions about the utilization of legal firearms. A firearm is a tool. It's like a hammer. It's like a screwdriver, right? It is a weapon, but I can make anything a weapon. I'm a weapon without anything in my hands. But it's basically a tool. And so their culture, it's seen as a tool that you have to be safe around, a tool that you have to understand how to use, but a tool nonetheless. To us, it is seen as a dangerous pariah that we should not look at, we should not see, it should not be around us. And it's a very interesting disparity of how we deal with weaponry. And quite frankly, the whole concept of the Cold War, for those who grew up in the 80s, was that you got to make sure that everybody's got an equal amount of weapons to keep the world safer. And this is a concept that they came up with. It's like, hey, hold on. No, you don't disarm. You arm everybody. Everybody's armed. You got a gun, I got a gun. You got 6 bullets, I got 6 bullets. And everybody takes their gun out, and everybody points it at each other, and everybody says, be cool. No fingers on the trigger, but I got my gun pointed at you because I know you got your gun pointed at me. I know you got missiles pointed at me, so I got missiles pointed at you. And everybody, be cool. That's what the Cold War was about. And when individuals who are smart said, America's got a weapon that Russia doesn't have. That's going to give America an edge. That's going to bring us closer to the brink of potential nuclear holocaust. Let's make sure Russia has that too, and let's make sure America knows. Who stole that information? I did, because I don't want you guys to have all the guns. I want to make sure everybody's got guns. That makes me safe. There's nothing safer than a nightclub where brothers are in this nightclub and everybody knows, yeah, I got mine on me, you got yours on me, okay, excuse me, brother. Excuse me, brother. But when you're the only dude in the nightclub who's got a gun, don't let nobody step on your feet. Don't let nobody brush you up on your shoulder. You better watch out, man. You better watch where you're walking, boy. Because you're the only guy in there with a gun. Give everybody a gun. Give the grandmothers a gun. Give the school bus driver a gun. Give the public transit guy. Everybody needs a postman needs a gun. Everybody needs a gun. Train them. Give everybody a gun. Give everybody the capacity to defend themselves. Everybody the capacity to hold their integrity. And no one the mentality that you have one up on the other. Because guess what? She's got a gun too. Granny's packing. Granny's packing. Kamla, Prasad, Miss Cesar, Granny, that Indian Granny is packing. And she says she'll light you up. Empty the clip. But how much sense does it make for a nation like Burkina Faso to make a call to weapon sellers and they say, oh, sorry, we can't sell you anything lethal. You're selling lethal guns to the terrorists in my country. In fact, you're not selling it, you're giving it to them. But you can't sell me anything lethal? What does that tell me? What does that say? You can't sell me anything lethal. You're the one trying to overthrow me. It's incredible to me. It's incredible to me. In Italy, we don't have a gun. I'm sorry that you don't have guns in Italy. I'm sorry, bro, because first of all, your nation is in a very interesting place. You're right off the tip of Libya. There's a lot happening in your region. There's really a lot happening there. So I don't know why you would not have the mentality to have guns as citizens now. Now, a lot of you guys in Europe, the reason that America has these open policies when it comes to guns is because of how constrictive your monarchies were and your regimes about allowing citizens to have the freedom of expression and the freedom to defend themselves. The states wanted to control that. And this is why maybe that has passed down to your current day so-called democratic societies. But the reason that the United States of America realized they had to arm everyone was because they realized that as much as they were trying to be a sovereign nation, other nations were coming to infringe upon that sovereignty. And they could not afford to say, we're going to have our own army. They said, no, you know what? We don't need an army. Just make everybody have a gun. That's why it's part of the constitution of that country. To make sure that you have the right to have a militia. You have the right to bear arms. They want to make sure that every frontiersman, that every dweller of the prairies and dwellers of the mountains and the hills, the Hatfields and the McCoys, if those British came marching down the street, and they blow those limeys' heads off. So I understand that Italy is still probably having an overshadow of their systems of Mussolini, their systems of Rome, of their emperor system, where you had an army and you had people that controlled the mechanisms of violence, and it wasn't going to be you, it was going to be them. And so that is potentially the historical aftermath of the origins of the Italian world and the Italian ethos. But in a modern day society, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I should not have to rely on the state to defend me. I should not have to pick up the phone and call 911 to come and defend me. I shouldn't have to. It is a privilege to have a police force in some societies, and in some societies it is again an aftermath of a more uglier past, where we understand that policemen were really effectively slave catchers, that which is why current day cops, a police officer today, a person that has given the rights and the authority to take away your civil rights, to end your life, to arrest you, to dispense law, they don't need a lot of education. Doesn't it make sense? A cop can just be a high school graduate, right? But a lawyer has to go to law school? The guy that you give the gun and the powers of arrest and the powers to suspend civil liberties, that guy doesn't need a law degree? That guy doesn't need to be tactically, specially trained, put in some intensive 5-year program? But the lawyer, who just basically shuffles paper and stands there to deliberate the law and interpret the law, he's got to go to 8 years of school? But the dude who could kill you and take your life away, he's got a 2-month course, and then you put him on the street? So you see that these things don't really make sense. That doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense, right? Doesn't make sense. It's like saying that the surgeon needs less information and less scholarly tutelage than the GP, when he's the one cutting you open and pulling out your organs and moving things around. Doesn't make sense to me, right? So I truly believe that every citizen of a nation, and I think those things should be part of your citizenship. I would definitely understand an argument that a person who's not a citizen of a nation shouldn't have the right to bear arms. But a person who is a citizen should have the right to bear arms, should have the right to defend themselves, should have the right to set up militias, should have the right to say, hey, I don't know if you're dispensing the law effectively, and because you are armed, I will be armed. I will protect myself. Officer, you point your gun at me, I'm gonna point my guns at you. You are a dispenser of the law. I have the rights and the privileges of the law, and therefore, until we've settled this, I'm going to point my gun at you if you point your gun at me. You want to put your gun away and have a conversation? We can do that too. But I'm not giving you the benefit of the doubt with a gun in your hand. And I think that is, I'm an ex-police officer. There's concepts of force. There's paradigms of force, and you shouldn't just start at the top. And also, force becomes much more predatory when it knows that it has all the force and you have none. Yesterday I saw this video on Instagram. Some of you might have seen it. 2 10-year-old boys had a gun, and 40 police officers surrounded these 2 little 10-year-old boys and were trying to talk them down. Drop the gun, put the gun down. They had a drone overhead looking at, and the boys were switching the gun back and forth between each other. They're 10 years old, little white kids. And these cops, they took their time, they spoke, they had therapeutic voices, they had authoritative voices. They said, your mother is here, and they spoke the kids' names, and went back and forth trying to get these two little boys to put down their gun. Right? But at the end of it, they had I think they had a cannon, and it was a non-lethal. It's like a non-lethal cannon. And they pointed the cannon above the little boys' heads, and they fired it. Big noise, shook them, scared the crap out of them. And then the therapeutic voices left, and the authoritative voices were, "Put that gun down right now." And they eventually ran up on them and ripped the guns out of their hands and put them in handcuffs. Now, that's a very interesting picture right there. It's a very interesting picture right there. Because, of course, we have two children brandishing guns. They don't have the right, they don't have the mental competency to brandish those guns. However, the police officers, and one was talking, "Man, I don't want to shoot these little kids, man, I don't want to shoot these little kids." You heard two things. You heard common sense, of course, and then you heard the impatience that is indicative of their training. Their training is not to wait for you to put down a gun. Their training is to make sure they eliminate you if you have one. But for the sake of those two young fellas' lives, they tried other levels of force, and ultimately they realized these little boys are not going to use this gun. They just have it, they're playing around, they're doing stupid stuff. They scared them, they ran up on them. One guy just ran up on them and just ripped the gun out of his hand. The problem I have, though, is that you can't treat Africa or the Caribbean like that. And I could go further. You can't even treat the Middle East like that. That's what they're effectively doing with Iran. Iran is like a little boy with a gun, and his gun is a nuclear weapon. And effectively, the police officers of the world, the U.S., have decided that they can't have that gun. You're not sophisticated enough to have that. You don't have the right to have it. And therefore, we're going to run in there, and we're going to take it away from you, and we're going to rip it out of your hands. Because you are little children. Imagine, though. Imagine a culture that is 10,000 years old being told by a nation that is less than what? How old is America? 1600s to now? It's less than 700 years old. To say, hey, you're not sophisticated enough to have that. Imagine that was reversed. Imagine the little boys were looking at the cops and saying, "Hey, give us your guns. Take that gun out of your hand. You don't have the right to have that. You don't have the right to give me your guns. Put your guns down, sir." That's what it's like right now. You have a 1,000-year-old culture of Iran, formerly Persia, formerly Babylon, formerly Chaldea. You have an ancient culture that this young whippersnapper, this European colonizer, is saying you don't have the right to own these things. And the truth of the matter is, the technology that has created most of the weaponry that America has been stolen from other nations, stolen from other communities. But you're telling the world you don't have the right to have it. And nations like Burkina Faso, the reason they are underdeveloped, and the reason that they can have General Langley's, and the reason that France can sit there occupying their nation and other nations can come in there, and the reason they have terrorists, which are really just bandits trying to destabilize the country, is because they don't have a proper army. And he said it. Troy said, we don't have a military. We've been trying to build a military, but the military has been squandered because we have had other nations' armies in there telling us what to do, telling us how to operate. We can't be sovereign with another army sitting in a country telling us what to do, telling us you don't have the right to hold these guns. Oh, that's too sophisticated for you. Nope, we can't give you that. Can't give you that. You Africans. No. That's not how the world works. That's not how the world works anymore. And it's about time that people have stood up and said, hey, we're not gonna allow this. We're not going to allow anybody to tell us what we can have and what we can't have. If America can have a nuclear weapon, Iran can have a nuclear weapon. Everything that anybody else can have, you can, and that's unfortunate. And that's why people say, okay, fine. We're just going to disarm everything. Okay, on the count of 10, I want you to forget everything you know. Just forget it. Just put it out of your mind. Everything that you've learned to do. If you've learned to box, just forget how to learn to box. If you've learned to shoot, just forget it. Can't forget it. Can't tell these people, oh, we're just going to pretend like we're going to take all the weapons away and all the violence is going to go away. It's not going to work like that. Oh, shoot. Sorry. Everybody's waiting for me to learn to drive. What? Okay. Not done yet, but it's okay. You're in a rush. Clearly in a rush. You got to go someplace. You got a job or something to go to. Let me read what I got here. We got some more dummies over here talking about my jewelry. I have some black friends, but they're from Africa, and I believe American, black, and Africans are totally different. And yes, I understand very little about black American history. Jeez. Every morning. Every morning. Forget about it. Anyways, like I said, I commend Kamla Prasad Besisar in her approach to making sure her nation is safe, to making sure her people are safe. Like I've been commending the president, Ibrahim Traore, the president of the free world, the man of the hour, 37 years old, leader. Some people are calling him the Messiah of Africa, and I think that's an appropriate term for him. He's not the Messiah. My Messiah's name is Yeshua HaMashiach, but a savior to Africa. I believe that's a very appropriate position for him. He is definitely standing in the company of great men when we look down history. And we're going to have to redefine. You're going to have to redefine what great men are from Africa. You're going to have to redefine whether. I know a lot of people, they have Mandela's in your mind because colonizers and victimizers love peacekeepers. They love guys that say, we don't need any violence. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to do anything too aggressive. We just got to talk, and they're gonna stop bothering us. They love those guys. They don't like Idi Amin, though. I love Idi Amin. I love guys that say, hey, no, I think I'm going to give you exactly what you've given me. I'm going to repay you with what you've given to me. Right? I like guys like that. For Africa, I absolutely do. Because the amount of blood on the hands of France, Belgium, Italy, the Dutch, of course America. There's a lot of blood on your hands. Germany, there's a lot of blood on your hands. There's a whole lot of blood on your hands when it comes to Africa. And we have to now we have to realize who our allies are. To look at Russia and the Soviet people and realize those guys have been better friends than any of you guys. Absolutely. As of late, the Chinese, as of late, North Korea have been great friends to Africa. And it's very interesting that when the African looks and says, who are the enemies of America? Who are the people that Americans are afraid of? And those are the very same people that have been the best friends to Africa. You have to now reshape your worldview. You cannot be puppets like General Langley. You can't be puppets. You got to realize that, I'll say it like this: in the Second World War, when black men were going to Europe and realized that the Europeans, the French, especially these French girls, we love you French girls, the French and Europe were treating black people better than they were being treated at home. They said, why am I going back to America to be treated like a second-class citizen when I'm a hero here? Doesn't make any sense. You've got to make that reconfiguration of your mind as well. If North Korea wants to help Africa, but America wants to manipulate, plunder, and discombobulate Africa and any other nations that we've come from, and has a history of genocide when it comes to us, why in the heck would I ever have a worldview that sees America as a friend, that sees America as a good place? Why would I look at this English tongue in my mouth and not realize I'm speaking in the language of my enemy? Why would I not realize that? Why would I look at Abraham Traore and not see a leader in the purest sense of leadership, and not see a fool sitting in the White House? Why would I not look at men like Putin? You say, oh, Putin, he was part of he was part of the secret services of Russia. Yeah, thank goodness, because he kept America at bay. I don't understand. I have to change my worldview. Even some of the African leaders that I thought were great people, but I realized that these people were being controlled by America. I have to change my worldview of them too. I realized, wait a minute now. Oh, we got to look at these guys again. And realize these guys were not good people. Isn't it interesting, as I close, that President Traore has pulled out of ECOWAS? Do you know what ECOWAS is? Okay. ECOWAS is the union of the West African countries, where they had a union, they had ECOWAS passports, they are part of an African union. I don't remember what it means right now. I forget. I don't remember what it means exactly right now. The acronym. But he says that's done. He's pulled out of that. He says, I don't want any more part of it. And when you look deep into it, what he's saying is that they are complicit with the colonizer in allowing the oppression of Africa. And we have nothing to gain from being part of their fellowship. And it's a big deal, because it means that Africans who usually traveled freely to those nations from his country, their passport is now going to cause them to maybe, I don't know, pay certain fees when they travel, maybe even not be allowed to come into the country. But he said this, he says, anyone from ECOWAS can come to us. You want to come to us? Come. We're not going to stop you. But we're not part of that. We're part of, they have their new organization called the AES, the Association of the Sahel States, ASC. I think it's AES though. So he's saying, I'm not going to be part of African unions that are still complicit with Western imperialism. I'm not going to be part of that. We're not going to be part of that. And this is the last part that I want to drop on you too. Somebody asked him, when are you going to step down and allow for free elections? That's the next trick right there. Right? Presidents. We don't need them. Oh, you got to think about this, Africa. You got to think about this. We don't need presidents. Africa doesn't need presidents. Let me tell you why. Because the man that controls the army controls Africa. And every time that you have this European democratic system in Africa, where you put a president, and then you have a guy who controls the military. The guy who controls the military controls the country. This is why in America, the president is called the commander-in-chief, because he controls the military. Africa, simply have a general run the country, period. He's a general. Have a team of generals run the country. And have those generals have a council of generals. You don't need a president, right? Traore is our president, but he's also a general. I know they're calling him captain because of he's a captain at the time. Now he's a general in chief. He's the commander in chief, right? So as we given him the promotion to president by default, he's also the general of the nation. He's the commander in chief. And therefore democracy, Western democracy doesn't work in Africa, because Western democracy is what has been used to destabilize Africa. Because they say, go in there and have free elections. Yes, have a free election. And when he becomes a president, he sits up in his house. They send people to go talk to his generals and say, kill him, overthrow him, shoot him in the back of the head. Because they realize they've separated him from the power. And they step in and make allegiances with the individuals who really control the power, which are the guys who run the army. Do not put a Western democratic system in your countries. Africa. Generals run Africa. Generals run the world. You need a general, right? General, as they say in Jamaica. You need a general. You don't need a president, because the presidential system that they're giving you is a broken concept. They know in America, every general knows he pleads allegiance to his commander-in-chief. That means the president of America is the general of America. That's what that means. But when they tell it, when they throw democracy to Africa, they say, "Oh, then you can't have a country that's run by generals. You have to have a democracy," and they give them this fake democracy, which doesn't work because they can come in there and seed dissension. Anyways, here we go. Zenobia, he don't want to be in power. You think that boy don't want to be in power? Traore wants to be in power. He's the smartest man in this nation. He's probably just one of the smartest men in Africa. And I believe he does want to be in power. That's why when they asked him, when are you going to do that? He says, time will tell. That's why he can say, we're never returning to ECOWAS. How can you say that if you're not the president? How can you say that if you don't intend to stay? He needs to stay right there. Stay right where he is. Make him a king, in fact. I like that. They need a monarchy to go back to Burkina Faso. Make him the king and leave him right there, in my opinion. He said he wanted to step down. I watched one of the interviews. He said he would want to step down eventually. I watched it too, but when the man says he wants to step down, but he's making absolute statements about the longevity of certain relationships. He will step down and then allow himself to be elected back. Don't get it twisted. He's not gonna. You can't step down in those regions. The next regime will kill you. They know you're too powerful. He can't step down. He said he will allow himself to step down so that they can have a free election and they will vote him right back in. I know what you're saying. No, make him the king. Don't play with that. Make him the king one time. Boom. Don't need no democracy. They don't need no Western democracy over there. They don't need no parliamentary system of white wigs on their blasted head. All these parliamentary system West Africans, you are slaves. You're still slaves, walking around with the master's white wig and black robe on your head. You're a slave. You're a fool, walking around with a white wig on your head. Chairman in a white wig. You slaves. No wonder he pulled away from you idiots. Damn fools. Make him a king. Make him King Traore. We will follow. We have no problem with that. Make him a king. Didn't Donald Trump make himself a king? The dictator that's governing by executive order? Did he make himself a king? Make Traore a king and stop the foolishness. Let them follow that. Stop walking around in ties and shirts in hot Africa and in suits. European suits. Take it off. Put your kaftan back on. Put back on your headpiece and walk the street like an African king. Stop it. We don't need that nonsense anymore. I'm tired of it, man. I'm tired of it. And same thing for Trinidad. We have a president and a prime minister in Trinidad. We're so confused. You need a president and a prime minister? Pick one now. You want a president or you want a prime minister? Trinidad said, we'll take both. We have a president and a prime minister in Trinidad. Anyway, I'm done. Love you guys. Take it easy. Protect him at all costs, Zenobia. At all costs. At all costs. Protect the man at all costs. The so-called terrorists that are running around in parts of Burkina Faso, they're not terrorists. They're not jihadists. The man is a Muslim himself. They're not jihadists. They are people being paid to destabilize the country. And they need to go in there and use the words of my prime minister. Load up your Matic. Light them up. Empty the clip. Send drone strikes and light them up. Move the people back. Traore, move your people back and do what Moses said. They that are on the Lord's side, come to me. If you are a child of Burkina Faso, come to me. And anybody else, light them up. Drone strike their backside, the whole perimeter, and then walk in there and clean up the rest. I'm finished. Del K. Brereton, this is the real spiel. Love you guys. And if you can't handle this, I don't know what to tell you. Bye-bye.